The American paradox.
A paradox that has been bugging scientists for a long time. And this is a problem that could be called the American paradox. And it is this. For all we know, or all the available evidence points towards an entry from Asia, from Siberia into the Americas about 15 to 20,000 years ago. On the whole scale of evolution, that's a tiny fraction. And even for a human or the evolution of Homo sapiens, that's a very small part of it. We also know, or as far as we can establish it, that this was a small group of people, the first settlers. So the ones that made it across the Bering Strait from Siberia into Alaska was probably a small group of people. And it's very unlikely that they had a lot of internal linguistic diversity. And then from there, they spread very quickly over the continent. And what you would expect then, on a par with what you find in genetics, is that the diversity is lowest in the Americas. So because it's a subset of a subset of a subset, like in genetics, the variation becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. But you have
right, like in Africa, you have the most genetic diversity, and you kind of get populations radiating out, and then if they take a route, then it's all those people are related to one group in Africa more, right, as it spreads around. Simplified, of course, because there are back migrations and you name it, but
exactly.
This is the radiating kind of ripple effect, isn't it, that we would expect.
And especially if you have a bottleneck event, so if you have a very big reduction of the population, that skews the genetics strongly. And you would expect that it would skew the linguistics as well. But instead, what we see is that the Americas are among the most diverse continents in the world, especially in terms of language families. So there are many, many, many different language families in South America and North America as well. Many of them very small, many of them isolates like Yuragare, so no family. You could say it's a family with one member.
Yeah.
And that is something that requires an explanation. Because according to the models that we have, which are obviously based on more well-known, on better-known cases like Indo-European, but those models would not predict such a big diversity to develop in such a short period of time. So this is really something that we need to understand. Why are the Americas, or in my case, because I focus on South America, why is South America so diverse? And there are several possible answers to that question. So one is, well, we're actually wrong about the initial population date. It must be much further back. This is a position that was defended by Joanna Nichols, for instance. But it is not corroborated by the evidence that we have, although there are a couple of tricky things that might actually, she might actually be right, because there are many gaps in our data. One of the problems being, just a little bit of an aside, but one of the problems being that the coastlines have shifted. And we know that the first people moved along the coastlines, but whatever they left in their quest is now underwater. So there might be, so people now developing things like maritime archaeology, where they have new techniques to unearth things that we couldn't before. It might be that they unearthed something that will tell us that people were in the Americas much sooner than we thought, much earlier than we thought. But as it stands, the evidence points towards 15 to 20,000 years ago. And another possible answer to that is that this initial group did have a lot of linguistic diversity already. But like I said, this was a small group, so that's also quite unlikely. That if you have a couple of people that almost everybody speaks a different language, that's pretty hard to believe. And so then a third answer remains, is that the diversification process in the Americas went much faster than in other continents. And this is something that most people are now still pursuing, that line of thought. And that means that there's something in the social historical dynamics in South America that made these languages diversify faster. And that's a very interesting puzzle, and that is the puzzle that lies at the heart of SAPPHIRE. So we want to understand the social historical dynamics so that we can understand the linguistic diversity patterns. That is the sort of the key focus of the project.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating, frankly, and it's really highlights, as I think you said, the need to come at this from multiple angles, because it's quite the puzzle. It's quite the paradox, like you said. Why is this the case? And if people aren't saying, oh, you know, in this year we did this, we went there, and we met these people, then maybe you don't know, you know, what the contact events were, you know. Yeah. Or at what time. So from distant past and until now, I mean, it's, yeah, you have to get at it through more than just what's on a page somewhere. And
certainly,
yeah, I think you provide a compelling reason why we should all have these kind of interesting cross-disciplinary fertilization events where we can really look at issues from a wide range of perspectives and, well, chip away at what we think actually happened.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's in this case it's certainly necessary. There's no other way forward.
Yeah, absolutely.